The roast beef was perfectly cooked, but I could barely taste it. Sunday dinner at my parents' house had always been a performance. Mom's carefully arranged table settings, Dad's practiced anecdotes about the business, my brother Marcus's strategic laughs at all the right moments. But tonight felt different. The air was thick with anticipation, like everyone knew something I didn't. I was pushing peas around my plate when Dad cleared his throat. That sound, I'd heard it 1,000 times before big announcements. Usually about quarterly profits or new acquisitions. Never anything good for me. "Emily," he said, setting down his wine glass. "We need to discuss the future of Harrison Global." I looked up, meeting his eyes across the mahogany table that had witnessed 25 years of family dynamics. The same table where he'd once told me I was too emotional to handle client meetings. Where he'd suggested I stick to administrative work despite my MBA from Wharton. "What about it?" I kept my voice neutral, even as my stomach tightened. "Your brother has shown exceptional leadership potential." Dad smiled at Marcus, who sat straighter in his chair, preening. "He's landed 3 major accounts this quarter alone. The board agrees? It's time to start the succession planning." Mom beamed, reaching over to squeeze Marcus's hand. "We're so proud of you, honey." I took a slow sip of water, letting the ice clink against my teeth. 3 major accounts. They didn't know those accounts had come from my quiet work behind the scenes, my late nights restructuring proposals, my relationships carefully built over years. "Marcus will take over as CEO within the year," Dad continued. "It's the right move for the company. You understand, don't you, Emily? You're just too soft for business, too hesitant. Business requires decisive action." Marcus smirked slightly. "Don't worry, sis. I'll find a place for you somewhere in the company. Maybe in HR. That seems more your speed." I set my fork down carefully, the silver making no sound against the fine china. They had no idea that while they'd been dismissing me as the soft daughter, I'd been building something of my own. Something that would make their 3 major accounts look like pocket change. "Excuse me," I said quietly, standing. "I need to make a call." "Emily?" Mom started, her voice carrying that familiar note of disappointment. "Don't be dramatic. This is a family dinner." I smiled, the kind of smile that comes from knowing something they don't. "It's just a quick business call. I'll be right back." Outside on the wraparound porch, the summer evening hummed with cicadas. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I knew by heart. "Hello, James. It's Emily Harrison. I think it's time to move forward with what we discussed." "Yes, all of it. Start the paperwork tonight." I ended the call and looked through the dining room window. They were all laughing now, probably already planning Marcus's coronation. Dad raised his glass in another toast. They had no idea that while they'd been grooming Marcus to run Harrison Global, I'd spent the last 3 years quietly building Vertex Solutions into their biggest client's preferred vendor. No idea that I owned 70% of the company that provided the technology backbone for their entire operation. No idea that by tomorrow morning, when James, my lawyer, filed the paperwork, their precious succession plan would crumble like the apple pie Mom was now serving. I walked back inside, taking my seat just as Dad was telling one of his favorite stories about Marcus's first big sale. "Everything okay?" Mom asked, more out of obligation than concern. "Perfect," I replied, finally taking a bite of the roast beef. It really was perfectly cooked, just finalizing some business details. "Business details?" Marcus laughed. What business could you possibly be handling on a Sunday night? I dabbed my lips with the linen napkin. You'll find out soon enough. Dad frowned slightly. Emily, if this is about the succession plan. Not at all. I cut him off smoothly. I completely understand your decision. Marcus is clearly the right choice to lead Harrison Global. I mean, those 3 major accounts he landed. Impressive. Marcus practically glowed with pride. Well, someone needs to keep the company growing. Absolutely, I agreed. Growth is crucial. Speaking of which, how's the Anderson account? Still our biggest client. Of course, Dad jumped in. 20 years of partnership. They're locked in with us for the long haul. I checked my watch. In exactly 12 hours, that long haul would hit a very sudden stop sign. More wine, anyone? Mom offered, trying to steer us back to safer waters. No, thank you, I said, standing again. I should actually head out. Early meeting tomorrow. On a Monday? Marcus scoffed. With who? I grabbed my purse, slinging it over my shoulder. Oh, just the CEO of Anderson Corp. Nothing major. The silence that followed me out was almost as satisfying as what I knew tomorrow would bring. Almost. That night, in my downtown apartment, I sat at my desk reviewing the documents James had sent over. Everything was in order. The merger agreement, the technology transfer contracts, the new service terms. 3 years of careful planning, all leading to this moment. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Hope you're not too upset about dinner. It's just business, sis. Nothing personal. I smiled at the screen. He was right about one thing. It was just business. And by this time tomorrow, they'd learn exactly what kind of businesswoman their soft daughter had become. I closed my laptop and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, my father was probably raising another toast to Marcus. Mom was probably already planning the announcement party, and the board members were patting themselves on the back for choosing the right successor. Let them celebrate tonight. Tomorrow would bring a very different kind of meeting. I poured myself a small glass of the whiskey I'd been saving, the same brand Dad always said was too strong for a woman's palate. The liquid burned satisfyingly as I pulled out my phone one last time. A quick text to James. Everything ready for tomorrow. His response came immediately. All set. Board meeting scheduled for 9 a.m. Anderson CEO confirmed for 10. You sure about this? I typed back. Absolutely. Time to show them what too soft looks like. Then I turned off my phone, settled into my favorite chair, and waited for morning to arrive. The calm before the storm felt almost electric. Tomorrow, Harrison Global would learn that while they'd been underestimating me, I'd been building an empire. Tomorrow, they discovered that their biggest client wasn't just partnering with my company. They were merging with it. Tomorrow, they'd finally understand what they'd missed all these years. That sometimes the quiet ones, the soft ones, the ones you dismiss and overlook, they're the ones you should have been watching all along. But tonight I would sleep peacefully, knowing that the next family dinner would be very, very different. Monday morning arrived with the kind of clarity that only comes before life-changing moments. I dressed carefully, a charcoal gray suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back sleek and professional. No flash, no drama, just quiet confidence. My phone had exploded overnight. 27 missed calls from Dad, 15 from Marcus, countless texts demanding explanations. I ignored them all. They'd get their answers soon enough. At exactly 8:45 a.m., I walked into Harrison Global's headquarters. The security guard did a double take. I hadn't been here in months. Not since Dad had suggested I take some time to find myself. The elevator ride to the 30th floor felt surreal. Behind these steel doors, I'd spent countless moments swallowing my pride, hiding my ambitions, playing the role they'd cast me in. Not today. Emily, Jessica, Dad's assistant, nearly dropped her coffee when she saw me. The board meeting's about to start. Your father specifically said. I know what he said. I cut in smoothly. But I think they'll want to hear what I have to say. The boardroom doors were closed, but I could hear voices inside. Marcus's distinctive laugh carried through, probably telling another exaggerated story about his business prowess. I checked my watch. 8:57 a.m. Right on schedule. Emily. Dad's voice boomed as I pushed open the doors. What are you doing here? This is a closed board meeting. The room fell silent. 12 pairs of eyes turned to me. The board members, Marcus and Dad, all wearing various expressions of confusion and annoyance. Good morning, everyone, I said calmly, taking the empty seat at the far end of the table. Please, don't let me interrupt. Marcus stood up, his face reddening. Dad, this is ridiculous. She can't jest. Actually, I interrupted, pulling out my laptop. I can. And you might want to sit down for this. Now listen here, Dad started, but his words were cut off by a sharp knock at the door. James walked in, followed by Michael Anderson, CEO of Anderson Corp., our biggest client, and two people I knew Gabord would recognize, the heads of Anderson's legal and technology departments. What's going on? Dad demanded, standing now. Michael, we didn't have a meeting scheduled until 10 o'clock, Michael finished, checking his watch. We're a bit early. Hope you don't mind. The color drained from Dad's face as Michael took the seat next to me. The others remained standing, creating a powerful visual I knew wouldn't be lost on the board. Emily, Dad's voice had dropped to a dangerous whisper. What have you done? I opened my laptop, connecting it to the room's display screen. Why don't I show you? The first slide appeared. Vertex Solutions logo alongside Anderson Corp.'s with the merger announcement date. Today. 3 years ago, I began, my voice steady. While you were all busy deciding I was too soft for business, I founded Vertex Solutions. We specialize in integrated technology solutions for enterprise-level operations. Sound familiar? It should. We've been handling Anderson Corp.'s entire digital infrastructure for the past 2 years. Marcus laughed, but it sounded hollow. This is a joke, right? There's no way you... Vertex Solutions, Michael Anderson cut in, has revolutionized our operations, increased efficiency by 40%, reduced costs by 35%, and yes, your sister built it from the ground up. I clicked to the next slide. The merger details. The numbers were staggering, even to me, and I'd been looking at them for weeks. As of this morning, I continued, Vertex Solutions and Anderson Corp. Are merging. The paperwork has already been filed. And our first order of business? I paused, letting the moment stretch. Reviewing all existing vendor contracts. The silence in the room was deafening. Dad's face had gone from red to white. Marcus looked like he might be sick. You can't do this, Dad finally managed. The Anderson account. We'd had it for 20 years. 19, I corrected. And yes, I can. In fact, I nodded to James, who began distributing folders to the board members I already have. The folders contained what I knew would be their worst nightmare: a complete audit of Harrison Global's service delivery to Anderson Corp over the past 3 years. Every missed deadline, every overcharged invoice, every technical failure that my team at Vertex had quietly fixed, while Harrison Global took the credit. "This is personal," Marcus accused, his voice shaking. "You're doing this because of last night." I looked at him calmly. "No, Marcus, I'm doing this because it's good business. Something you'd understand if you'd actually landed those 3 major accounts yourself, instead of taking credit for my work." A board member, Mr. Thompson, I noted, was already flipping through the audit report, his face growing grimmer by the page. "These numbers, this is accurate?" "Every page," Michael confirmed. "We've been tracking the discrepancies for months. The only reason we didn't terminate our contract with Harrison Global earlier was out of respect for our relationship with Emily." Dad collapsed back into his chair, looking suddenly old. "Emily, please. We can talk about this. Whatever you want. A position on the board, equity in the company." "I don't want anything from Harrison Global," I said, standing. "I have my own company. One that I'd built without nepotism, without taking credit for others' work, and without underestimating people because of their gender or their supposed softness." I gathered my things, nodding to Michael and James. "The board has 24 hours to review those documents. After that, we'll need your decision on whether Harrison Global wishes to bid for a new contract under the merged company's terms, or if you prefer to terminate the relationship entirely." As I turned to leave, Marcus found his voice. "You'll regret this when the family finds out." "The family?" I laughed softly. "You mean the same family that spent years telling me I wasn't cut out for business. The same family that was ready to push me into HR because I was too soft to lead." I reached the door and turned back one last time. I think they'll be very interested to learn just how wrong they were. The last thing I saw as the doors closed was Dad's face, a mixture of shock, anger, and something I'd never seen before: respect. In the elevator down, Michael turned to me. "That went well." I smiled. "It did. Thank you for coming in person." "Are you kidding? I wouldn't have missed this for the world." He paused. "You know they'll try to fight back." "Let them," I said, checking my phone. The news of the merger was already hitting the business wires. Harrison Global stock would take a hit the moment the market opened. I'm not afraid of a fight. Back in my car, I finally allowed myself a moment to breathe. My hands were shaking slightly, not from fear, but from adrenaline. Years of careful planning, of swallowing my pride, of building something in silence, it had all led to this moment. My phone buzzed again. "Mom, this time." "What have you done?" "Your father is devastated." "How could you do this to your family?" I started typing a response, then deleted it. Some answers couldn't be explained in a text. Some lessons had to be learned the hard way. Instead, I called my assistant at Vertex. "Sarah?" "Yes, everything's done. Start the next phase." "And Sarah?" "Book me a table for 1 at La Maison tonight. I think this calls for a celebration." The day wasn't over yet. There would be more meetings, more accusations, more attempts to paint me as the villain. But for now, I had shown them exactly who I was. Not the soft, hesitant daughter they dismissed, but the businesswoman who'd outmaneuvered them all. And this was just the beginning. The aftermath was even more spectacular than I'd anticipated. By Tuesday morning, Harrison Global stock had dropped 18%. The business papers were running headlines like Family Dynasty Disrupted. Harrison Global loses biggest client to founder's daughter, and Vertex Solutions, the silent giant that changed the game. I sat in my office at Vertex, watching the city wake up through floor-to-ceiling windows. My phone had finally stopped buzzing. Either they'd run out of things to say, or they'd realized I wasn't going to respond. The silence felt like victory. Sarah knocked on my door. "Your 9 a.m. is here." I nodded, straightening my desk. "Send them in." The Harrison Global board members filed in. Thompson, Martinez, and Chen. No Dad. No Marcus. Interesting. "Emily," Thompson began, looking uncomfortable in my space. "We've reviewed everything. And I kept my voice neutral, professional. The board has voted. We want to negotiate new terms with Vertex Anderson." He paused, "without current management's involvement." I raised an eyebrow. "Meaning?" "Meaning your father and brother have been asked to step down. Effective immediately." The words hung in the air. I hadn't expected this, hadn't planned for it. Part of me felt a twinge of guilt, but I pushed it aside. They'd made their choices. "I see," I said carefully. "And what exactly are you proposing?" Martinez leaned forward. "We want to discuss a potential merger. Harrison Global and Vertex Anderson. Combined resources, shared leadership." I almost laughed. "You want me to save the company?" "We want to survive," Chen said bluntly. "Your father's leadership style, it's outdated. The board should have seen it sooner." I stood, walking to the window. Below, I could see the Harrison Global building, the same building where I'd been told countless times I wasn't good enough. "No," I said finally, turning back to them. "No." Thompson looked shocked. "Emily, this could be an incredible opportunity. Harrison Global needs to learn to stand on its own," I cut in. "Without nepotism, without relying on family names. I'm happy to negotiate fair contract terms for future business, but a merger? No." They left looking defeated, but I felt lighter. This wasn't about destroying Harrison Global. It was about forcing change. That afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor. "Mom." "Security called," Sarah announced. "Your mother's downstairs. Should I send her up?" Mom looked out of place in my modern office, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. Her eyes took in everything. The views, the sleek furniture, the clear signs of success she'd never bothered to notice before. "So this is where you've been hiding," she said, attempting her usual dismissive tone but failing. "Building, Mom. Not hiding." She sat down, smoothing her skirt. "Your father's devastated. The board, they're forcing him out. Your brother too. Is this what you wanted?" What I wanted? I felt years of suppressed anger rising. What I wanted was for my family to see me, to acknowledge my capabilities, to stop treating me like I was somehow less because I didn't fit Dad's idea of a business leader. "We were protecting you." "No," I cut her off. "You were controlling me. There's a difference." She fell silent, looking at the magazine on my desk, my face on the cover, the headline reading "The Silent Revolution. How Emily Harrison Changed the Game." "I don't even know who you are anymore," she whispered. "That's the problem, Mom. You never did." After she left, I called James. "How's it looking?" "Harrison Global's board is in chaos. They're announcing your father's retirement tomorrow, spinning it as a planned succession. Marcus is being quietly let go." I closed my eyes. "And the family?" "Your cousins have been calling. Apparently, There's a lot of money tied up in Harrison Global stock. They're not happy. They'll survive, I said, though the weight of it all was finally hitting me. That evening, I drove to my parents' house. The same house where just days ago they'd announced my brother's succession. The same dining room where they'd dismissed me one final time. Dad opened the door before I could knock. He looked older, tired, but there was something else in his eyes. "Emily," he said softly, "I suppose we need to talk." Inside, the house was quiet. No Mom, no Marcus, just me and the man who'd spent years underestimating me. "You could have told me," he said as we sat in his study, "about Vertex, about all of it. Would you have listened?" He was quiet for a long moment. "No," he admitted finally. "I wouldn't have believed it. That's the problem, isn't it?" I nodded, feeling tears threatening but holding them back. "You never saw me, Dad. Not really." "I saw what I wanted to see," he said. "A daughter who needed protection. Instead," he gestured vaguely at me, "instead you were building an empire right under my nose." "I learned from watching you," I said. "Every mistake, every success. I just did it differently." He picked up a photo from his desk, me at graduation, young and hopeful. "The board's right, you know. I'm done. Harrison Global needs new leadership." "I know. Marcus," he sighed heavily. "He's not taking it well. He never earned it, Dad. Any of it." We sat in silence for a while, the weight of years of misunderstanding between us. "I'm proud of you," he said finally, the words sounding strange from his lips. "I know it doesn't matter now, but I am." I stood to leave, pausing at the door. "It matters, Dad. It's just too late." The next few weeks were a blur of meetings, press conferences, and reorganization. Harrison Global announced its new leadership. Young, diverse, merit-based. Their stock began to recover. Marcus left the country, reportedly traveling in Europe. Mom stopped trying to make me feel guilty. Vertex Anderson flourished. Our merger became a case study in business schools. The Harrison method, they called it. Building success quietly, strategically, without fanfare until the moment of revelation. 1 year later, I sat in my office, looking at a new email from Dad. He'd started a small consulting firm, helping family businesses navigate succession planning. His message was simple. "I tell them all about you. About how I almost lost everything because I couldn't see past my own prejudices. Some of them listen. Thank you for teaching me the hardest lesson of my life. Love, Dad." I smiled, clicking reply. "Dinner this Sunday? Just us." His response came quickly. "I'd like that." As I looked out at the city skyline, I thought about that Sunday dinner a year ago. The daughter they thought was too soft had turned out to be the strongest of them all. Not through force or drama, but through quiet determination and strategic patience. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying what others have built. It's about building something better yourself. Something so undeniable that they have no choice but to finally see you for who you really are. I picked up my phone and dialed. "Sarah? Clear my schedule for Sunday evening. I'm having dinner with my father." It wasn't forgiveness, not exactly, but it was something like progress. And in business, as in family, sometimes that's the best you can hope for.